Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the beauty school industry. We're going to dig into how this path, which promises so much creative freedom, can, well, sometimes lead to a dead end of debt. You know, for so many people, the beauty industry has always been this amazing gateway. It's a path to owning your own business, to having a stable career, especially for working class folks and immigrant communities. It's all about that promise, right? Turning a passion into a real profession, building something with your own two hands. And that's a really compelling dream. But what if the reality for a lot of students is a whole different story? What is the real price of admission here? Okay, look at this number, $16,600. Just let that sink in for a second. That's the median annual income for someone who graduates from a for-profit beauty school. Think about that. You invest all this time, you take on debt for a credential that on average earns you less than a job you could get with just a high school diploma. Something is not adding up. Okay, so let's just lay it all out. You've got students taking on a median debt of anywhere from $7,000 to $11,000. At the same time, graduation rates can be shockingly low, sometimes as low as 24% finishing on time. And the earnings, often they're less than what you'd make straight out of high school. It's a really tough equation. So you have to ask, what is driving this huge disconnect? All right, let's dive into the first piece of this puzzle. It's all about the system's architecture, and it's built on something called clock hours. It's basically how long you have to sit in a chair. And as you're about to see, the number of hours you need, it is all over the map. Just look at this. It's a total patchwork. If you're in Iowa, you need a whopping 2,100 hours of training. But head over to California, and suddenly it's only 1,000. This is wild, right? It means a license you worked so hard for in Florida might not mean much in Kentucky. It creates these massive barriers if you ever need to move. So, who in the world is coming up with these numbers? Well, this brings us to a really important concept, and it's called regulatory capture. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. Imagine the referees in a game are actually playing for one of the teams. That's pretty much what's happening here. And this is exactly what it looks like in the real world. The state boards that make all the rules, they're often packed with industry insiders. A lot of them are school owners themselves. I mean, look at Florida. 5 licensed cosmetologists and only 2 people from outside the industry. You can see the clear conflict of interest, right? Critics point out there's a huge financial incentive here. Keep the training hours high, and students have to stay in school longer, which means they pay a lot more tuition. Okay, so let's follow the money. Because this whole system of long training hours is being fueled by a really powerful economic engine, federal financial aid. Get this. Every single year, more than $1 billion with a B in federal student aid gets funneled into these cosmetology schools. That's taxpayer money, by the way. It's a constant stream of cash that keeps the whole machine running. But the big question is, where is all that money actually going? Wow, okay, this chart right here just lays it all bare. A huge piece of the pie, nearly half, 45%, is going to marketing. Then another 30% or so goes to just paperwork, the overhead for handling all that federal aid. So when you do the math, what's left for actual, teaching? A tiny little slice, sometimes as little as 10%. It's pretty shocking. And there's actually a name for this. Researchers call that big marketing chunk the glamour tax. Think about it. Students are paying thousands of dollars of their tuition, not for their education, but to fund their school's advertising. We're talking glossy ads, fancy social media, those big hair shows. It's all about branding the school, not actually teaching the student. And then you've got the other hidden fee, the compliance tax. This is all the money spent on the massive amount of administrative work it takes just to process federal financial aid forms, like the FAFSA. And you can bet that cost isn't being eaten by the school. Nope, it's passed directly to the student through higher tuition. Okay, so if all this money is going to marketing and paperwork, what's the big official reason for all these long hours? Well, the one you'll hear over and over again is public safety. The whole argument is that we need these long hours to keep people safe from injuries. But does that argument actually hold water? Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. Take a look at this comparison. A cosmetologist needs, on average, around 1,500 hours of training. Now, what about an EMT, an emergency medical technician, the person who literally shows up to save your life? They need about 150 hours. A nursing assistant? Less than 100. When you see it like this, the numbers just feel completely out of whack with the actual risk. And it's not just a gut feeling. The data actually backs this up. There was a huge study called the Clean Cut Study that looked at thousands of health inspections. And what did they find? Absolutely no link between more training hours and safer or cleaner salons. The states with these super burdensome rules were no safer than the ones with much lighter requirements. So the conclusion here is pretty clear, right? The whole public safety argument, as good as it might sound, just doesn't hold up. The evidence isn't there. It really makes you wonder if the system is designed to protect something or someone else. So look, if the system is this broken, what's the alternative? Is there a better way? Well, the good news is, yes. There's a whole wave of reform and innovation happening right now, creating these new debt-free paths to a career. All across the country, things are starting to change. We're seeing states finally getting rid of licenses for low-risk stuff, like natural hair braiding. Schools in places like New York and California are now required to teach about textured hair, which is a huge step. And there's this new thing called a licensure compact, which basically lets a stylist's license work in multiple states. It's all about making it easier for people to actually do their job. And this all leads to a really powerful new way of thinking. Just look at the difference between the two paths. On one side, you've got the traditional model that depends on federal aid. On the other, you have these new, debt-free models like the Louisville Beauty Academy. And the difference is just stark. We're talking way lower tuition, getting into the workforce in under a year, and starting your career with zero debt. It's a total game changer. So how are they doing it? What's the secret? It's actually incredibly simple. They just say no thanks to federal financial aid. And by doing that, they completely get rid of that massive compliance tax. All the money they save by not having to deal with a mountain of federal paperwork, they pass it straight onto the students with much, much lower tuition.
So, what does this all mean for you? It means that this old, broken system isn't set in stone. Change is possible, and honestly, it's already happening. These new models are living proof that you can get a great beauty education, one that launches a real career, without having to take on a lifetime of debt.
And all of this really leaves us with one big final question, and it goes way beyond just cosmetology. What should a license really measure? Should it be about time served, the number of hours you've sat in a classroom, or should it be about the skills you've actually achieved? How we answer that question, well, that could change everything about job training in the future.